was called the face of angels. Soft eyes, gentle voice, a beauty that seemed almost too human. But in the end, Montgomery Clift became Hollywood's most haunting ghost. He had everything: talent, fame, love, promise. And then one night, it was all shattered. On a dark road in 1956, after leaving a dinner party at Elizabeth Taylor's house, Monty's car hit a telephone pole. The crash crushed his jaw, broke his nose, and nearly tore his face apart. Taylor, barefoot and bleeding, pulled him from the wreckage before he choked to death on his own teeth. When the ambulance lights faded, something else disappeared too, the man he once was. The surgeons saved his life, but not his light. The cameras that once adored him now caught shadows. The beauty that defined him was gone, and Hollywood, the city that worshipped perfection, began to look away. But Monty didn't stop acting. He couldn't. He called it the only thing that keeps me alive. Even through pain, addiction, and depression, he kept performing raw, honest, unfiltered. He became the first of a new kind of actor, broken, vulnerable, real. They said he died of a heart attack. But everyone in Hollywood whispered something else. Monty Clift died the night of the crash. The truth is more complicated, because his story wasn't about death. It was about what happens when a man too beautiful for this world is forced to live without his mask. Before he became Hollywood's tragic angel, Edward Montgomery Clift was a quiet, sensitive boy growing up in a world that didn't understand him. Born in 1,920 inches, Omaha, Nebraska, he was raised not in warmth but in control. His mother, Ethel, was elegant and ambitious. She believed her children were destined for greatness. His father, William, was strict, distant, and emotionally unreachable. Love in the Clift household came in the form of expectations, not affection. Monty had a twin sister, Roberta, and an older brother, Brooks. But even as a child, he seemed different. Where others played, he daydreamed. Where others shouted, he listened. His mother pushed him toward private tutors and expensive schools, trying to mold him into a proper gentleman. But Monty wanted none of it. He hated rules. He hated pretense. He wanted truth raw, unfiltered, and real. At 13, he discovered theater. By 17, he was performing on Broadway, stealing scenes from actors twice his age. There was something magnetic about him, an intensity that didn't come from training but from the soul. He didn't act like others did. He felt. His performances were alive with quiet pain, longing, and vulnerability. For the first 10 years of his career, he stayed far from Hollywood. He didn't care for fame or money. He once told a reporter, "If I can't feel it, I can't play it." But Broadway couldn't contain him forever. In 1948, he starred opposite John Wayne in Red River, and suddenly the world noticed. Here was a man who looked like a movie star but acted like a poet. Unlike Wayne's swagger or Bogart's toughness, Monty brought something new: fragility. Audiences didn't just watch him. They ached for him. Then came The Search, A Place in the Sun, and From Here to Eternity. He was nominated for 3 Oscars before turning 35. Every director wanted him. Every studio begged him. And yet, he stayed distant. He lived alone, didn't drive, and rarely gave interviews. Hollywood called him the mystery. He called himself a man trying to stay sane in a world that wants masks. He was best friends with Elizabeth Taylor, who called him my little brother, my soulmate. But his secret life, his quiet struggle with sexuality, his fear of rejection, and his battle with self-loathing was something he shared with no one. Montgomery Clift was the face of a new kind of Hollywood hero, one who didn't conquer the world but carried its weight inside him. He was beauty and pain, wrapped in silence. And the higher he rose, the closer he came to breaking. Because for Monty, fame wasn't a dream. It was a slow kind of drowning. By the early 1950 seconds, Montgomery Clift was untouchable. He wasn't just one of Hollywood's brightest stars, he was its conscience. While others chased money and fame, Monty chased truth. He refused long-term studio contracts, rewrote his own dialogue, and turned down roles that didn't mean something. He was called the man who said no to Hollywood. But behind the quiet rebellion was a man unraveling. The fame he never wanted brought with it a spotlight too harsh for his fragile mind. He hated interviews, despised publicity, and lived like a ghost in the city of light. At parties, he stood in corners. On set, he whispered instead of shouted. Elizabeth Taylor once said, "You couldn't look away from him because he wasn't pretending to be anyone else." Then came the night that changed everything. It was the 12th of May, 1956. Monty was leaving a dinner party at Taylor's Beverly Hills home. He'd been tired, distracted, maybe a little drunk, no one knows. As he drove down a winding road, his car veered off and slammed into a telephone pole. The crash was catastrophic. His face was crushed, his jaw shattered. His nose and cheekbone were broken in multiple places. Taylor, hearing the impact, ran barefoot down the hill. When she found him unconscious and choking on his own blood, she reached into his mouth to pull out his teeth so he wouldn't suffocate. That moment, Elizabeth Taylor, saving Monty's life, became one of Hollywood's most harrowing legends. But what followed was worse. The surgeons rebuilt his face as best they could. To the world, he survived. To Monty, something essential had died. His beauty, the very thing that had made him a star, was gone. And in a business built on illusion, imperfection was unforgivable. He avoided mirrors, drank heavily, and drowned himself in painkillers. Friends said he would sit in dark rooms for hours, staring at the wall, whispering lines from his old movies. When he returned to work on Raintree County, his face was stiff, his voice trembling. But when the camera rolled, his eyes, those soft, tortured eyes, burned with something deeper. Pain had become his instrument. Marlon Brando, James Dean, Paul Newman, they were all influenced by him. But unlike them, Monty didn't play broken men. He was one. The industry whispered that he'd lost it. But his performances in The Misfits, Judgment at Nuremberg, and Freud proved otherwise, raw, haunting, brutally real. His acting was no longer about beauty. It was about survival. Yet with every role, his demons grew louder. Addiction, depression, isolation. He once told a friend, "The pain is the only thing that makes me feel alive now." And so, he kept chasing it through pills, whiskey, and silence, until the line between life and performance disappeared completely. Hollywood had once called him the angel face. Now, they called him the ghost with the broken one. By the 1960 seconds, Montgomery Clift was a shadow of the golden boy who once redefined Hollywood. His beauty was gone, his body was frail, and his mind was a battlefield. But what haunted him most wasn't the mirror, it was the memory of who he used to be. He called it the crash inside my soul. After the accident, the studios stopped calling. Directors whispered that he was unstable. Friends said he looked haunted, eyes sunken, hands trembling, voice cracking with exhaustion. He moved from hotel to hotel, bottle to bottle, role to role. But through the darkness, his art only grew deeper. When he played a Nazi war criminal in Judgment at Nuremberg, he didn't just act remorse, he bled it. He arrived on set disoriented, unable to remember lines, his face pale and drawn. The director almost fired him until the camera started rolling. In one take, Monty delivered a performance so devastating, so human, that even his co-star Spencer Tracy was left speechless. He earned an Oscar nomination for that scene. He didn't win, but maybe that wasn't the point. Monty wasn't chasing trophies anymore. He was chasing something he'd lost himself. Off-screen, he was spiraling. Painkillers, sleeping pills, alcohol, a cocktail that numbed everything except loneliness. Elizabeth Taylor remained his fiercest defender, standing by him even when everyone else had given up. She called him "my dearest broken soul." Monty's private life was equally tormented. He loved deeply, but in secret. His relationships with men were hidden under the weight of fear. This was 1950 seconds America, when a confession could end a career. He lived with shame that wasn't his to carry. He once said, "The closer I get to people, the more I scare them away." In his final years, he became a ghost, haunting his own past. His apartment in New York was dim, the curtains always drawn. He watched his old films late into the night, A Place in the Sun. From Here to Eternity, the beautiful face on screen, mocking the ruined one, reflected back at him. He didn't hate fame. He hated what it had taken from him. On the 23rd of July 1966, Monty stayed up watching The Misfits, the last film of his friend Marilyn Monroe, another soul too fragile for the world they shared. When his assistant checked on him that morning, Monty was gone. The coroner called it a heart attack. His friends called it what it truly was, the slowest suicide in Hollywood history. He was 45, alone, unloved by the world that once worshipped him. When Elizabeth Taylor heard the news, she wept for days. She said, "He was too gentle for this earth. He wasn't destroyed by the crash, he was destroyed by caring too much." Montgomery Clift's story isn't one of failure. It's one of unbearable honesty, a man who couldn't live inside a lie. He once said, "The sadness of life is not death, it's what dies inside us while we live." For Monty, that sadness became art, and that art made him eternal. From this channel's perspective, Montgomery Clift wasn't just an actor, He was the soul that changed Hollywood forever. Before him, movie stars performed emotion. Monty became it. He didn't act from technique, he acted from pain. Every silence, every tremble, every flicker in his eyes felt like confession. He was one of the first method actors in America, before the world even knew what that meant. Long before De Niro, Pacino, or Brando, there was Monty. He didn't imitate humanity, he revealed it, and the price of that honesty was unbearable. Hollywood didn't know what to do with a man who refused to hide behind charm. They wanted clean smiles, masculine heroes, perfect faces. Monty gave them something else, brokenness. And the world wasn't ready. His accident didn't destroy his career, it exposed his truth. That's why his later performances are so haunting. He stopped playing characters and started showing us himself. Every scar, every tremor, every moment of pain became part of the art. He turned vulnerability into rebellion. To this day, no one has captured loneliness the way Monty did. He made silence louder than dialogue. He made beauty tragic, and he made tragedy beautiful. What makes him different from other fallen stars is that he never sold out. He didn't chase money, glamour, or fame. He chased meaning, and that made him dangerous because real emotion can't be controlled, can't be marketed, can't be contained. Monty's life was short, but it changed the language of acting forever. You can see his fingerprints in every performance that feels too real, too human, too painful to watch. He taught the world that art isn't about pretending, it's about bleeding truth in front of strangers and daring them to look away. And yet, his tragedy is still the same as it was in life. Hollywood remembered his beauty, but not his bravery. They called him the angel face, when really, he was the mirror. He reflected everything fragile, lonely, and painfully human about the dream factory that built him. In an industry built on illusion, Montgomery Clift was the one man who refused to lie. And that's why he didn't survive, but also why he'll never die. There's a moment in every Montgomery Clift film, a pause, a look, a quiet ache, when you realize he's not acting. He's remembering. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a rebel. He was something far rarer, a man who dared to feel everything. Even now, decades later, when his face flickers across the screen, you can still sense it, that fragile light trembling behind his eyes, trying to survive the weight of being seen. It's as if he's reaching out through time, whispering to the audience, this is what it really feels like to be alive. Monty never found peace, but somehow he gave it to others in the way he looked at love, guilt, pain, and forgiveness without blinking. He made suffering poetic. He made brokenness beautiful. And in doing so, he gave Hollywood something it had never seen before, a soul. He once said, "The sadness of life isn't death, it's what dies inside us while we live." Maybe that's why his story hurts so much, because we all see a little of ourselves in that quiet collapse. In the parts of us that want to be perfect, but can't be. In the dreams we chase until they chase us back. Montgomery Clift didn't fade away. He simply stepped into the shadows he'd always belonged to, not as a fallen star, but as a haunting reminder that truth and beauty are often the same wound. Hollywood moved on. The cameras stopped. The lights went out, but in every close-up, in every trembling breath, his ghost still lingers, gentle, broken, eternal. Because some angels don't need wings. They only need a face, and a story that refuses to die. Some stories fade. Some stories are never meant to be known. But now, you know,